Steam Autumn Sale 2025 is a beast. There are plenty of amazing games with amazing deals. So today I'll share 20 great games that cost $10 or less in which you must buy. Let's check it out. So let's start out with Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition originally was $25, but with a 70% discount, it is now $7.49. Devil May Cry 4 is a really fun, chaotic action game where you get to fight hordes of enemies coming at you in styles. It is just really fun, really chaotic and whatnot. As well as what I love about Devil May Cry 4 is that the game is divided into various missions in which each mission will be graded. And the grading is based on, how much items that you use throughout the various missions. For example, whether or not you use items to restore some of your health during an intense fight, as well as whether or not you use different items to revive you, just as a few examples, as well as, each mission can be graded based on also how many red orbs you collect, because while you go around in the game, you can bust down different items in the game, treat the world as if it is your world, and that will help you to get some red orbs, as well as when you kill different enemies, you also can accumulate these red orbs. So basically, you want to try to get as many red orbs collected, and that will guarantee you a higher grade on the mission. As well as another way that the mission can be graded is also the time that you take to complete the specific mission. If you finish the mission sooner, you will be awarded with a higher grade. Now, what I also really love about Devil May Cry is that while fighting those different enemies, there is a grade on the side showing a specific letter, and where there is a tagline depending on how well you fight. For instance, a grade A in Devil May Cry 4 is taglined Atomic. That's just an example. But anyways, if you love these type of action games where there are a whole bunch of enemies coming at you and where you can fight in a hack and slash style, definitely check out Devil May Cry 4 on the Steam Deck. Once again, Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition originally was $25, but with a 70% discount, it is now $7.49. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic originally was $30, but with a 67% discount, it is now $9.89. Deep Rock Galactic is a game in which you and up to 3 other friends get to play in first-person shooter fashion as dwarves living on this procedurally generated cave. What I really love about Deep Rock Galactic is that you get to work together as you go about, whether it is digging, whether it is exploring, whether it is fighting merciless hordes of enemies, as well as whether it is gathering resources. It is just a really fun co-op experience where you get to just embark on this adventure while exploring those different areas that just feels like space, some place where you normally will not be able to explore in real life. It's just really fun, really chaotic, as well as it just brings about teamwork, brings about the excitement. And what I really love about Deep Rock Galactic as well is that due to its very non-linear gameplay is that you can easily pick up and drop whenever. So that is also something that's really cool for people like me who from time to time enjoy co-op games but primarily love to play single-player games. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is just a perfect game to play. So yeah, if all this sounds really interesting to you, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic on the Steam Deck. Once again, Deep Rock Galactic originally was $30, but with a 67% discount, it is now $9.89. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor originally was $13, but with a 30% discount, it is now $9.09. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is a spin-off to, Deep Rock Galactic. But in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, it is not a first-person shooter. It is more of a top-down shooter where you play as a dwarf. Yes, singular dwarf, because unfortunately in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, you cannot play with your other friends. It is a solely single-player game. So if you are a cooperative gamer fan, sorry guys. But anyways, it is a bullet hell game where you also get to gather resources, you also get to fight those different hordes of enemies, and also upgrade different abilities and gear. So yeah, if you are somebody who is more inclined to want to play the single player aspect to it, as well as you also am more inclined to like roguelite type of game where it's also very chaotic, where there are plenty of enemies to fight, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic Survivor on the Steam Deck. Once again, Deep Rock Galactic Survivor originally was $13, but with a 30% discount, it is now $9.09. Now up next is A Way Out. A Way Out originally was $30, but with an 80% discount, it is now only $6. A Way Out is a co-op adventure game where you and your friend get to each play as prisoners who must escape prison because you and your friend both believe that you are wrongfully jailed by a mutual culprit, which pins his guilt on the both of you. Yes, very, very tragic and very, very terrible. Now, what I really love about A Way Out is that even though the title suggests that it is just escaping the prison, hence the name A Way Out, but it is much more than just a way to free yourself out from the prison. As you assist the characters to escape, there will be also these different unexpected events as you go about this journey to confront the culprit and settle things once and for all. There are all these different plot twists and unexpected turn of events that just keeps me on my feet, and where it just brings about the spice of this co-op adventure where you have to always work together to make sure that both of you will be able to be free, and where it is a win-win situation. So yeah, if you really love these type of co-op adventure thrillers where at a point where it could be just peaceful, but at another point it could be really intense where you are in a gunfire, major chaotic battle, if you love these kind of stuff and where you will have the adventures of your lifetime, definitely check out A Way Out on the Steam Deck. It will definitely not disappoint. Once again, A Way Out originally was $30, but with a whooping 80% discount, it is now only $6. Now up next is Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden originally was $30, but with a 75% discount, it is now $7.49. Persona 4 Golden is a turn-based RPG game about a high school protagonist who moves into a countryside town of a fictional Japanese city called Inaba, where he meets new friends while solving the mysteries of various murder cases in town, with the privilege of both interacting with the real world as well as entering into the cognitive realm through a TV and fighting all the way to the end in the form of their personas, which resemble the name of the series but also the avatars reflecting on each individual, and are activated only when entering the TV and fighting and exploring various dungeons. The key is to fight and level up the various personas of each character to grant more skills, in which you will become stronger and buffer and whatnot in order to tackle more enemies in the games, in the dungeons and stuff. What's cool is that Persona 4 Golden perfectly blends turn-based RPG with high school life simulation games, as in between those various deadlines in which you have to go into the TV to enter those different dungeons to tackle the dangers and whatnot to save a shadow out of those different dungeons, is that in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others as well as participate in various classes. As well as what I love about Persona 4 Golden is they're prioritizing their story arcs in the different bonds that they form, because the thing is that when you form those different bonds, not only do they help in making you stronger and better prepared to face whatever danger lies ahead in those various dungeons and stuff, but also what's cool about those bonds is that there are also these unique story arcs in those different characters about the different things that they face, those different challenges, and where you play as the protagonist and you bring hope to them, bring encouragement to them. So those kind of bonds, those story arcs, I believe that it is something that's definitely worth checking out. It just brings so much spice into the story of Persona 4 Golden. So yeah, if you really love these type of turn-based RPG games where there is a rich story in which there are these different interesting characters, in which there is so much to do, and where you get to learn so much about those different stories, those things that captivate you and also teach you in how to become a better leader, definitely check out Persona 4 Golden on the Steam Deck. Once again, Persona 4 Golden originally was $30, but with a whooping 75% discount, it is now $7.49. Now up next is Middle-earth Shadow Bundle. Middle-earth Shadow Bundle includes both Middle-earth games, aka Shadow of War, as well as Shadow of Mordor. As well as in this Middle-earth Shadow Bundle, it also includes the important DLCs from both games. Now the bundle originally was $70, which I already believe is totally worth it, as I spent more than 70 hours playing both games combined as well as the DLC, and I enjoyed every second of playing. I never felt bored or felt like the gameplay was grindy. But now with a 90% discount, it is only $7. What I love about Shadow of Mordor is how you get to fight those different enemies, as well as there is a beautiful place to just explore that is heavily engaging if you're somebody who loves Lord of the Rings and loves The Hobbit, as well as there are also different side quests that really enhance the story, as well as a beautiful soundtrack that wraps everything that I mentioned together. But what I really am glad about Shadow of Mordor, what I really think really stands out compared to other beautiful open world games, is the Nemesis system. In Shadow of Mordor, you get to track down different Uriks, and where you get to defeat those different captains, and where if you defeat those different captains, it will cause the captain's goons to be weakened. However, if you get killed by the captains, then it will cause the Uriks to level up. So it is something in which you gotta prep, you gotta strategize before you take on a captain, because if you keep dying, it may come to a point where the game will be very much unplayable because the enemies get so high level and you are completely under leveled and you cannot play the game anymore, and unfortunately you have to start over. So that is something that you do not want to do. So yeah, Shadow of Mordor is a really great game for people like me who are Lord of the Rings enthusiasts. It is something that is just really great and really subversive. Now as far as Shadow of War goes, I love Shadow of War so much more than Shadow of Mordor. It is just the bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor, with a much bigger world to explore, a much bigger world to roam, as well as different enemies to fight, as well as there are also more side quests, and as well as there's also a bigger and better variety of weapons. That's what I really love about Shadow of War. But what I am impressed mostly about Monolith Productions is buffing the Nemesis system in Shadow of War. What I love about the Nemesis system in Shadow of War is that enemies are able to be dominated. When dominating an enemy, the enemy can be sent to eavesdrop different war chiefs and bring back intel to Talion. As well as what's cool about being dominated is that those enemies, they can continue to be your friend or later on betray you and become a foe depending on how you treat them. Like for example, if during a battle you decide to protect them in the battle, they will continue to be your friend. But if you abandon them, then they will become your foes. So this is a game in which it is just so much more polished than Shadow of Mordor. It really feels as if Shadow of War, the gameplay side of things, is what Shadow of Mordor was meant to be. So yeah, that is something that is just so remarkable. If you are somebody who loves Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, you will love Shadow of War. If you are somebody who just loves open world games and the action side of things, you will love Shadow of War. It is just a game that I believe is just meant for everybody. Definitely check out Shadow of War on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Fallout 4. Fallout 4 originally was $20, but with a 60% discount, it is now only $8. Fallout 4, it is an open world futuristic game set in the year 2287 around Boston, Massachusetts area, aka the Commonwealth. Now as far as Fallout 4 goes, there are plenty of weapons in the game that you can mod and customize, in which you can take down various enemies that are featured in the game. As well as in Fallout 4, you can also build various settlements in which you'll be able to take charge of. So yeah, it is a really engaging open world game that I highly recommend on the Steam Deck. Once again, Fallout 4 originally was $20, but with a 60% discount, it is now only $8. Now up next is Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest originally was $20, but with a whooping 75% discount, it is now only $5. Ori and the Blind Forest is a Metroidvania platformer game where you get to play as Ori, a spirit guardian who is on this mission to revive a withered forest by restoring the 3 elements of light. What I really love about Ori and the Blind Forest is the beautiful world to platform, as well as there are also those different secret areas that you can discover. Also, on top of that, there is an emotional story that brings tears to my eyes, as well as a beautiful soundtrack to bring all that awesomeness together. It's just really cool, really fun, and the music, I will say this, is that very few games, in my opinion, have better music than Ori and the Blind Forest. They are those type of music in which I will find myself to be playing them regularly, even when I'm not playing the game or when I'm with other friends. Even friends where they are not in a good mood, they will ask me at times, can we play some music from Ori, Joe? The soundtrack is just really top notch. It not only brings the mood and vibe of the game together, but it also is just really relaxing that you will potentially want to play them not only when playing the game, but also outside, as the music can be quite addicting as well. But anyways, if you love these type of beautiful platforming games where there is just an emotional story, as well as you love these type of games where it is also not that challenging as well, because I understand that for some people, they will get turned off by platformer games because some platforming games are just really challenging. But Ori and the Blind Forest, I feel like it is a good start to get into even the platforming genre. There are parts where it is just a bit tricky, but at the same time, it is also not overwhelmingly hard. So yeah, if you really also love these type of platformers that is also not that hard, but at the same time also fun and emotional as well, definitely check out Ori and the Blind Forest on the Steam Deck. Once again, Ori and the Blind Forest originally was $20, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $5. Now, up next is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps originally was $30, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $7.49. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. What I love more about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that there are side quests that you get to engage, because believe it or not, Ori and the Blind Forest, there is no side quest. Yes, there is exploration and there is story progression, but there is no side quest to do in the game. The only reason to go back to a certain part in Ori and the Blind Forest is to just discover certain areas in which you cannot access before, because at the time that you encounter those different areas, you don't have the skills to get into those areas. So the only reason to go back to certain areas in Ori and the Blind Forest is to access certain parts of the map which you could not access before. However, in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there's another incentive to go back to certain areas, and that is to engage in those different side quests. I believe those side quests, they bring about those different values in the game. As well as what I really love about how there's those different side quests is because it just feels that Ori gets to engage more with the community in the forest. It just makes me feel as if Ori is being more intentional with the residences in the environment. It's just one of those type of little things that just really matter a lot more in my opinion. As well as what I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps compared to Ori and the Blind Forest is that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, it is also heavily reliant on auto-saving. When you progress in the game, there will be that icon at certain points where it shows that the game is saving, and that is something that I find really valuable as well, because I'm somebody who is not that great at gaming. I do love games a lot, that's why I make this channel, but at the end of the day, I have to admit that I'm not the best at gaming, so having autosave features is just something that is really practical for me, because I don't want to be where if I pass a certain part of the game that is just really challenging and I forget to save, then I have to redo the challenging part of the game again. I mean, that was one of the things that I had struggle with Ori and the Blind Forest is there are certain challenging parts of the game where I passed and I forgot to save, and where I had to redo the challenging part. So I'm really glad that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there is also this part of auto-saving where, you know, if I mess up and I forget to save, then sometimes there could be a chance where it auto-saves and I don't have to redo certain parts. But anyways, another thing that I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is the introduction to spirit trials, where you get to race against a spirit and the goal is to beat it and to receive spirit light, which is the currency for you to buy different important necessities in the game. As well as what I really love is the inclusion of combat shrines, which you get to fight waves of enemies and where you also receive those different rewards that will help you along your journey to progress in the game. Even though I praise Ori and the Will of the Wisps and I love Ori and the Will of the Wisps so much better than Ori and the Blind Forest, but I have to warn you, what I really don't like about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that the story, in my opinion, is not as inspirational as Ori and the Blind Forest, just as a heads up. Aside from that, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just better in every other way, so honestly, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just a much better, much polished game, in my opinion. But anyways, if you really love these type of Metroidvania platformer games where there is a beautiful world to explore as well as an amazing soundtrack and where there is a lot of things to do and whatnot, and also interesting boss fights, definitely check out Ori and the Will of the Wisps on the Steam Deck. Once again, Ori and the Will of the Wisps originally was $30, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $7.49. Now up next is Halo Master Chief Collection. Halo Master Chief Collection originally was $40, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $10. Halo Master Chief Collection is 6 for the price of 1, baby, where it includes 6 classic Halo games: Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo Reach, Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, as well as Halo 4. What I really love about Halo Master Chief Collection is that it is just really iconic. It just brings back the vibes of the classic games that I enjoy back in the day. Those really fun first-person shooter games that just brings about all these different types of memories. Halo Master Chief Collection, in my opinion, they are also the best games in the Halo franchise. They just basically identify what the Halo games ought to be. So the major thing is that if you are somebody who's a long-time Halo fan, you must check out Halo Master Chief Collection. If you are somebody who just wants to kind of hop into the Halo franchise, you must check out the Halo Master Chief Collection. It is just something in which it is just so mind-blowing, so amazing, and where it's really great to be able to play on the Steam Deck and play on the go whenever possible. Once again, Halo the Master Chief Collection originally was $40, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $10. Now up next is Quantum Break. Quantum Break originally was $40, but with an 80% discount, it is now only $8. Quantum Break is a third-person action-adventure shooter where you get to not only shoot hordes of enemies, but where each type has different behaviors where you have to learn and adapt. And what's cool about Quantum Break is that I really love how you get access to time powers. And time powers are basically powers where you get to manipulate time to either accomplish different tasks or take down different enemies. Two of my favorite time power gameplay mechanics is Time Stop as well as Time Echoes. In Time Stop, you get to freeze different enemies in time where they get locked in a bubble and you get to shoot at them with no mercy and disrespectfully and kill them. And where Time Echoes, you get to replay certain instances in the events of the game where you either, number one, need to solve the puzzle in order to progress in the game because currently there are obstacles that block your way, or number two, you will also be be able to use time echoes where you basically be able to learn about past events of the story of Quantum Break. And also another thing about this game too is that there is story junctions. There are plenty of different junctions that basically affect the plot of the game. There are multiple endings as well. So yeah, if you're looking for a third-person action-adventure shooter where there are a whole bunch of different enemies to fight, as well as there is also a story where you can experience multiple endings, if you love all that, definitely check out Quantum Break on the Steam Deck. Once again, Quantum Break originally was $40, but with an 80% discount, it is now only $8. Now up next is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt originally was $40, but with an 80% discount, it is now $8. You can also choose to select the complete edition, which includes both Blood and Wine as well as Hearts of Stone DLCs for an extra $2. So if you go with the complete edition, it will be just $10. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. What I really love about it is that there is a vast open world where it is really lively. There's a variety of the busy city life where you can do a lot of different things, as well as there's also wild areas flooded with danger. There's a variety of these different stuffs in this vast open world. In this game, you get to play as a monster slayer known as the Witcher, and where you can travel on foot, by boat, by horse, just as a few examples. And there are tons of side things to do, such as horse racing, boxing, romancing females after completing certain quests, as well as you get to visit different blacksmiths where you get to craft better weapons. If you love these type of open world games where there's a lot of things to do and there's a vibrant world to explore, as well as there is a great story and whatnot, definitely check out The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal originally was $40, but with a whooping 90% discount, it is now only $4. Doom Eternal, this is a first-person shooter game where you play as the Doom Slayer in a futuristic world overrun by demons. What I love about this game is that you get to brutally engage in chaotic fights, as well as you use that to acquire health, ammo, and armor. It is a game in which it is really important in this gameplay aspect, as well as what I love about Doom is that you get to use different types of guns. You can use the ballista, you can use the heavy cannon, to just name a few, as well as there's also these melee weapons like the Doom Blade, the Crucible, all these different cool weapons that you get to use to your own advantage. So yeah, if you really love these type of first-person shooters where there is a beautiful world where you get to fight those different hordes of enemies and where you gotta be on your toes at every moment, and there are always enemies where it is just so chaotic and whatnot, definitely check out Doom Eternal on the Steam Deck. Once again, Doom Eternal originally was $40, but with a whooping 90% discount, it is now only $4. Now up next is Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition originally was $40, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $10. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is an open world RPG game that is really iconic, really popular, really classical, and it is really timeless. In this game, you can choose between whether or not you want to play in a first-person or a third-person perspective, and you get to explore an environment that's inspired by Scandinavia, and where in Skyrim there is a diverse variety of races in which you can choose from, as well as there is a variety of various terrains such as the wilderness, such as the towns, such as the various dungeons, the caves. The possibilities are just endless. It is just a beautiful world to explore and engage with, and as well as there are also a variety of various enemies. It is just something that is just really remarkable and really fun, as well as really engaging, in which you can spend so many hours there to dive deep and you will not feel bored. So yeah, if this all sounds great to you, definitely check out Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on the Steam Deck. Once again, Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition originally was $40, but with a whooping 75% discount, it is now only $10. Now up next is Enter the Gungeon. Enter Enter a Gungeon originally was $15, but with a 70% discount, it is now only $4.49. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell dungeon crawler roguelike game where you get to fight through all the way to the bottom of the dungeon, where throughout the way as you fight, there will be hordes of different enemies you have to encounter, as well as bosses which are all merciless, and where you gotta work on your reflexes. You gotta have really strong, high, and fast reflexes in order to tackle those different enemies and bosses, as well as you gotta have some kind of really strong, really big brain to also learn about those different habits, those different enemies and bosses fight. It is not a button mashing game. It is something in which you gotta react really fast, but at the same time learn how to adapt to those different enemies, the fight style and whatnot. And that is the key in order to progress in the game and in order to overcome no matter what obstacle you face. So yeah, it is a really fun, but also at the same time it can be very frustrating as well. Even if you are playing with another buddy, it could also be really frustrating because, like I said, the enemies are very merciless, and they are also something in which you gotta work on your fundamentals to the fullest extent and also learn how to adapt to those different enemies. If you are somebody who is up for a challenge, who is up to really test your reflexes as well as test how you can work your brain to figure out how to easily adapt to different scenarios, if you like all that kind of stuff, then Enter the Gungeon. Yes, Enter the Gungeon is definitely for you. It will not disappoint. Once again, Enter the Gungeon originally was $15, but with a 70% discount, it is now only $4.49. Now up next is Lethal Company. Lethal Company originally was $10, but with 25% discount, it is now only $7.49. Lethal Company is a co-op horror first-person survival game set in a futuristic world where you and up to 3 other friends get to assume the roles as contractors of the company, and where it is your job to explore abandoned moons and collect certain amounts of scraps and go back to return and sell them to the company. Now, as far as the abandoned moons goes, there are various hazards, various traps, as well as various harmful creatures that get in your way, in which you gotta watch out. And where in this game, it's all about being careful and collecting enough scraps in order to meet the quota that the company sets for you. If you love horror survival games and where there is a whole bunch of unexpected things to happen in the game, definitely check out Lethal Company on the Steam Deck. Once again, Lethal Company originally was $10, but with a 25% discount, it is now only $7.49. Now up next is Road 96. Road 96 originally was $19.96, but with an 80% discount, it is now only $4. Road 96 is a first-person adventure game, though it's not first-person shooter. But anyways, Road 96, you get to play as various teenagers where you get to assist them to help them cross the national border and to start a new life. Now, the thing about Road 96 is that your goal as you journey across as hitchhikers, you must do all it takes to avoid being caught, arrested, or being killed along the way, because obviously you will not be able to start a new life, and so you need to do all it takes to basically avoid all these different bad scenarios and make it all the way across the border. Now, each time as you make your way across the border, or if you go partially and then all of a sudden you get captured or you get killed, you will automatically assume a new role for another teenager. So it is a game in which you will often change roles, because once you are done with one of the teenagers, you will move on to the next teenager. Now, as far as the journey goes, as you go about in Road 96, there are multiple stops where you can either explore and gather different resources to help you to be more energized and be able to continue on the adventure. Now, as far as the stops goes, aside from the different materials that you can gather as you go about exploring, there's also different NPCs in which you can also engage with, and the NPCs, in my opinion, they are really interesting. They bring about the vibe of the story. It helps you learn about the background of Road 96, as well as interacting with them. Depending on what you choose, it will greatly affect the arc of the story. So it is something that is really interesting. If you really love love a beautiful, fun adventure game where there are a whole bunch of different unexpected events and where you can live your life as a young, wild, and free teenager, definitely check out Roll 96 on the Steam Deck. Once again, Roll 96 originally was $19.96, but with an 80% discount, it is now only $4. Now, up next is It Takes Two. It Takes Two originally was $40, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $10. In this game, you and your friend get to play as a couple where they are on the brink of divorce, and where you and your friend must solve those different puzzles, which will help each of you realize how much you two need each other and have a different perspective on the relationship and try to mend the relationship and restore it and into a point where you want to stay as family and you do not want to divorce anymore. What I really love about It Takes Two is how well it is presented both visually as well as emotionally. As far as the visuals go, I just love how there are these fascinating visuals which brings about the vibe of these Pixar movies, because as a kid I really loved watching those Pixar movies. It is a timeless thing in my opinion, where there's just this beautiful artistic world which is childlike and cartoon-like and full of imagination. As far as how I feel emotionally about this game is as me and my friend go about playing those two characters and go about, overcoming those different obstacles, overcoming those different challenges, overcoming those different puzzles, as well as engaging in those various mini games. It really makes me want to cheer for the couple in which they receive healing, decides to reconcile to each other in the relationship and restore it, and where they are not just staying together because of their daughter, but also, more importantly, they're staying together because they believe that it is important to keep their bond, that they are meant to be together, rely on each other to encourage and build each other up. So yeah, if you really love these type of games in which not only the visuals are just really pleasing and where you also really love how the game can potentially speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out It Takes Two on the Steam Deck. Once again, It Takes Two originally was $40, but with a 75% discount, it is now only $10. Now, up next is Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 originally was $50, but with a 90% discount, it is now only $5. Now, up next is Watch Dogs 2. In this game, you get to play as Marcus, a young hacker who takes down shady and corrupt organizations throughout parts of a fictionalized Bay Area in California. This game specifically features iconic locations like San Francisco, Oakland, Marin County, and the Silicon Valley. You can travel by foot, travel by car, travel by buses, travel by trucks, motorbikes, you name it, as well as you get to engage in firearm fights also while driving. What I really love about Watch Dogs 2 is that there are various ways to approach those different missions, whether you want to approach it aggressively or in stealth mode. They both bring a really thrilling experience. As far as the aggressive approach goes, you get to engage in combat itself using a variety of melee and firearm weapons created from a 3D printer. As far as the stealth approach goes, you also get to use a variety of things such as paralyzing enemies with your taser or secretly using drones. Now, as far as the game goes, since it is an open world game, aside from the main missions and side missions, there are also a variety of things to do in this vast fictionalized Bay Area where you can street race, you can engage in street art activities, drone racing, and many, many more. So yeah, if you are looking for an open world game that's really engaging, really fun, as well as you really love the vibes of the Bay Area like me who grew up in the Bay Area, it kind of hits home to me a lot, then definitely check out Watch Dogs 2 on the Steam Deck. And just as a side note, Watch Dogs 2, like GTA 5, it is listed as unsupported because the multiplayer side of things also doesn't work. So just as a side note, but as far as the game goes, it all runs properly. So yeah, if all this sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Watch Dogs 2 on the Steam Deck. Once again, Watch Dogs 2 originally was $50, but with a whooping 90% discount, it is now only $5. Now up next is Don't Starve Together. Don't Starve Together originally was $15, but with a 66% discount, it is now only $5.09. Don't Starve Together is a multiplayer expansion to the survival game Don't Starve. In this game, you get to play with up to 5 other friends. Basically, you get to work together to gather different resources, to build, to explore, and basically do all it takes to survive the harsh wilderness. It is a really engaging, cartoon-like cooperative game in which I would recommend anybody who is looking for a challenging survival game to check out on the Steam Deck. Once again, Don't Starve Together originally was $15, but with a 66% discount, it is now only $5.09. Alright friends, these are 20 great games in which they cost $10 or less in the Steam Autumn Sale of 2025. Let me know in the comment section below, are there any games in which you are looking to check out in the Steam Autumn Sale of 2025 in which they are $10 or less? And as always, if you love gaming lists, gaming reviews, gaming discussions, and everything related to the Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you not miss another video. I try to post Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time and occasionally on Fridays, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joe Wang from the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!